I didn't fully understand that parent because I couldn't fully understand that parent because I had
Relate to them.
no idea. I had no idea what it was like until I was in it. And I kind of giggle to myself sometimes because I'm like, I was probably suggesting some really outlandish, crazy shit for them to do that I was thinking, oh, it's so easy. Just do this and do that. And it's like, you don't always have the capacity to do this and do that.
Hi, I'm Vaness Henry. I'm a 6'2" ego manifester, and welcome to InSights. In my conversation today, I'm talking with my dear friend Alex Cantone, a fellow 6'2" profile, but a self-projected projector, an expert in child development, and one of the original voices I took in the 2010s who was talking about parenting by design and human design energetics in kids. Before becoming a mom, Alex earned her master's in child development and special education, and she even taught within the school system. But then she did something radical. She left these areas, stopped teaching so that she could actually have experience embodying this and raising her own family. Now a mother of two, she sees things very differently. You could say she's seeing it through all new eyes. We talk about real things that are concerning parents today: the exhaustion, the aloneness, the confusion over so much information, and we take a really close look leaning on her knowledge from her previous education and experience that she has in her world, and we look at it through the lens of what she's learning now as an actual parent. She shares with me the things that she might have done differently, what she's doing now, and even some really meaningful moments from a thirst-colored child who needs to have his tea in the fridge before he drinks it, or how her appetite eater child needs to have everything Miss Rachel in order to properly digest it. If you've ever wondered how to raise your children or re-raise yourself, this conversation is going to hit very, very deep. Do it again. You're back. Okay. Hello, Alex.
Hello, Vanessa.
Hello, Alex. Hello. Welcome back to the show. How are you?
I am great. I'm just living.
She's great. She's a splenic. No, oh my God, she's not. I'm so sorry. She's a self-projected projector. I'm all out of sorts now from our funny little intro. But I wanted to have you back on the show. You're kind of my go-to expert on child energetics. You have a lot of knowledge here. And in recent years, as a fellow 6'2", you've gone on the roof and you've moved away from that. And you're still my go-to expert on this. Would you, for anybody who doesn't know you, because you are a little bit pulled away right now, you have had 2 kids, you are postpartum. What's your background in the first life phase before you went on the roof?
Okay. So I have a degree in child development and special education and developmental models of autism intervention. That's my master's.
Cool.
And I was a teacher for a few years, very short-lived career in the public school system. And then I've also worked in some private schools. So I've just had a lot of experience in schools, especially in early education and special education. And along the way of my education teaching experience, I discovered human design and was immediately curious about the children who I was working with and how that could play a role in children's individuality. And so that became my obsession for a very long time. And that's how my since gone Instagram account kind of took off, was just talking about parenting children, specifically just child development. I mean, I think I positioned myself as this kind of parenting guide, parenting expert almost. And then as I worked with parents and they came to me with these struggles that I didn't really quite understand, like I could really understand their kid when I was looking at them and when I was hearing what they were saying, but I was struggling with how to support the parent in maybe more of their emotional experiences and hardships. And because of that, I became sort of intimidated by the space. And I was like, well, I'm not a parent, so I can't do what I feel like I need to do for these parents until I have the experience myself of being a parent. And I pulled away from it before I became a parent myself, and then sort of just moved into my own personal journey and sharing that with the community that I had built through the parenting and child industry. But yeah, that just something just felt off there. So I just pulled away entirely and kind
You
of
went on the
needed to,
roof.
yeah, I had to go on the roof. I had to do that thing, and happened to get pregnant back to back as I was doing that. So now here I am, two
Um,
babies.
I had kind of positioned it as child energetics, but I heard you say child development. That sounded, quite bang on to me. Is that how you like to refer to things? Your
Yeah. I mean,
expertise?
that's the thing that I've always been most interested in is just child development from infancy into like young adulthood, and really specifically like birth to 7, that those first 7 years of development. That's something that I've always been drawn to, kids who are 7 and under.
We also find that's
And
very important in human design as well.
yeah, and that was something I was drawn to before discovering human design. And then
Mm-hmm.
once I discovered human design, and
Kind of
it
affirmed.
was so, um, what's the word I'm looking for? It was so, yeah, affirmed, I guess, that the first 7 years are just so crucial and so important for the development of like the alignment in your human design. It just coincided with everything that my studies in child development told me about what is important as a parent, as a caregiver, as anyone spending time around kids, to know and understand and to facilitate in growth and development for kids. So,
So what I heard was in order to actually have meaningful child development, you have to get to the parents and actually support the parents and empower the parents in understanding the children, because these people who you worked with before were kind of like, how the heck do you know so much about my child? Like in this peculiar specific way, which you can now see your human design studies had kind of influenced that.
yeah.
You knew a lot about your this is quite the background. Like your background is quite the background. And just so it's been said, that's quite the background. And you decided to leave in a way because you wanted to go get the real life experience to do a better job. It's almost like I felt like you were telling us about a sort of imposter syndrome. Yes, I have all this knowledge, but I see that I need to kind of get to the parents, but I'm not a parent. So who am I to? There's an interesting story there. And just so it's been said, I have mad respect that you pulled away in your expertise to hone in more on your expertise through your own children. And I
Mm.
know you're like, I pulled away first before I had children, but because you're making the space for that to come in. And if
Yeah.
anybody wants to watch that process, they can go watch the
Mm.
HDIRL series
Yeah.
where we see you fall in love. We
Mm.
see you have your inner vision sense come alive. And
Yeah.
because just a moment of the brilliance in your design. You're a self-projected projector. You're a 6'2" profile on the roof, so you're a role model hermit. You're a shores person, and you're also a thirst eater with an inner vision tone. So you're a visionary. This is what's special about you. And you have a sense of smell on your shore, so your instincts are keen when you're in an aligned environment. And so the part of the 6-line profile, a huge part of our development is, once we have that Saturn return, age 28, 29, 30, in this sort of window, we go on the roof, we disconnect and detach from that first life phase, and we really integrate. We really reflect on what it is we were going through. But now here you are. I know what it's like when the child, and you have 2 kids, is a toddler, is an infant. That is so all-consuming. How has this experience shifted everything you understood before in the way you were supporting parents?
Well, I think that I am able to recognize now how vulnerable the parents were who were coming to me. And I'm not sure how I treated them or how they felt about how I was supporting them. That doesn't really, I can't control that, right? So that's not like that's not what keeps me up at night by any means. But I think about, wow, like I didn't I didn't fully understand that parent because I couldn't fully understand that parent because I
Couldn't
had
relate to them.
no idea. I had no idea what it was like until I was in it. And I kind of giggle to myself sometimes because I'm like, I was probably suggesting some really outlandish, crazy shit for them to do that I was thinking, oh, it's so easy. Just do this and do that. And it's like, you don't always have the capacity to do this and do that. So a lot of how I look at it now is how to have grace with yourself and work within your capacity to support your child while also understanding that you're not going to be able to give them everything they need perfectly 100% of the time. And that it's just not always as plain and simple as what might be in a chart or what this outside thing is saying about your kid. You know, a lot of it is acting in integrity with yourself and what I like human design talk, your inner authority, so that you can trust the decisions that you're making for your child because at a young age they can't really make decisions for themselves. And that's like a really challenging thing about
Great point.
toddlerhood because toddlers, all they want to do is exert control in every single situation. And there's so much that's out of control for them. And I think that's why people are like, oh my gosh, the terrible twos, they're so awful, blah, 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 blah. I mean, I have
That
a
needs a
very,
rebrand. That
I know,
needs
I
a
don't like it.
rebrand. Mm-hmm.
I don't like it. And I have a very willful, assertive toddler who wants to do everything that he wants his way. And if I serve him yogurt and it's too cold or too hot, it just came out of the fridge, my thirst boy, I have to put it in the freezer for him. And I have to do certain things for him to accommodate his needs. And human design gives me that like grace and gives me that pause where I'm like, okay, he's not
What would
being
be
a
good for
brat.
him? Mm-hmm.
He's actually asking for control in this experience. He's actually just asserting his wants and his needs, even if they seem absolutely ridiculous in this experience. And yeah, it's just not about doing human design parenting right for me. It's about being able to sort of either in the moment or later when I'm processing, like step away from that experience and be like, huh, how did that play a role in that? But I don't really do it consciously because I think I have the system kind of integrated in my awareness. So that's just how I'm like looking at things, even if I'm not consciously thinking that I'm looking at things that way. But overall, I think that where I'm at now is looking at parenting and being like, this is so hard. This is so all consuming. Like you said, this is taking so much out of me every single day. How can I just find that space where I feel resourced enough to give to my kid what my kid needs in what I feel is in alignment with them and who they are and what they're showing me, and how can I really like kind of get out of their way? And that's something that I actually very much connect with what I used to say to parents, because now I can see the experience of being a parent and seeing your kid like go out in the world or have a relationship with someone or have relationships with your family members. And as the mom, especially like wanting to be in all of it and wanting to add your, oh, well, he actually does it this way, or actually he's more like
And then
this.
the
And
moms
just,
get a bad rap for that. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And being aware of like letting things happen
Mm-hmm.
and not making things be perfect while they're happening, but being there more as an external regulator and a source for maybe like correction or just an emotional safety if something does happen that I'm like, it shouldn't have gone down that way, but I'm here for him now. Um, and that's where it's shifted for me is it's not about creating the perfect formula or the perfect roadmap to make sure that things unfold perfectly in every single moment. It's about observing things happening in the moment and then responding to those things in a way that either I do or don't feel good about. And then I have to repair that again, you know? And it's just like, it's a constant, ever evolving process of just figuring out how can I be the best parent for my child by taking care of me and taking care of them and having to have a balancing act there. And sometimes one takes precedent over the other. And then that's just how it has to be. It's like, I just never know what I'm going to get each day. And I have to accept that. And that's hard.
When I came to visit you and you were pregnant with Sienna, and I came to Colorado to stay for a few days, one of the things that stood out to me, we both raised cave sons. And so one, you were very pregnant at the time. And so there was an aspect of there's only so much I can do. But what I really observed was the permission for your son to be able to go do what he wants, because he's like a climber. He would want to kind of get in things. And sometimes he would fall or hurt himself or whatever. And you didn't make a huge deal of it. You were like, oh, you fell off that slide. And you were simply narrating the experience. And I think this is such a moment, because the same way the parent reacts, oh my God, are you okay? The child will usually start to cry then. And you were not, this was not an upsetting thing that happened. You're crawling all over the slide. Oh, there was an effortless narration. Again, you're self-projected. Yes, you were very pregnant, but you couldn't go in and micromanage his playtime. Even if you would have wanted to, there was just this, I was like, oh, she's got a different kind of wisdom. And, I was the person who had the cave kid who was like, careful. And so then that turned into the kid who's afraid of everything. And so I'm
interesting.
Like, how may I reflect? How may I reflect? And so part of my reflection was in seeing the natural encouragement, the natural affirmation that was coming out of you through the narration of his experience. That was very impactful for me to kind of take in. And what I feel like I heard you say now is parents are very vulnerable. They don't always have capacity for whatever is necessary. And parenting itself is so all-consuming. And the parent is so bombarded with information that they need an immense amount of grace for themselves because they're being bombarded with what to do, and they don't have capacity, and they're very vulnerable, and they likely don't have as much community support as they actually need. So now that I'm going to go ahead and say I don't necessarily think that's what you observed in your first life phase when you were in it, while you were that third line version of yourself. You could do this, you could do this, you could do this. Now there is this objective, zoomed out overview that almost seems to have, I'm going to say, way more respect for the parent. It's as if the focus before was, yes, on the children, because this is child development. But there does seem to have been some flip of the most gracious thing I could do to actually get to the child is to educate the parent, is to empower the parent, is to recognize the vulnerability, the aloneness, the bombardment, that all-consuming nature that the parent goes through. You're nodding. What's coming up for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe I was a little hard on the parent when I wasn't a parent, because I was like,
maybe the world is hard on the parent.
I think the world is hard on the parent. I think the world has really high expectations for the parent to be a certain way all the time. And there's times where I can be the way that I want to be. And there's times where I have no idea how I'm being, because I'm just so tired, exhausted and mentally done and touched out with my two freaking touch kids who always want to be touching me.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I just don't always have it in me. And I think I look back and again, like, I really don't have any regrets, which is surprising, because usually I like hold things,
girl, nah,
but I
we're
don't
not doing that no more.
I don't hold on to how I was in that phase, because I just didn't know what I didn't know.
It was a different person.
But I imagine I was hard on the parent and had a lot of judgments towards the parent that I would maybe hear back now and be like, girl, shut the fuck up and like sit down. Like, you have no fucking idea what it's like.
Well, Al, if I may, I want to jump in just to narrate some of the brilliance in your own consciousness. You're a hope motivation person. So there is this natural uplifting essence to you. I have a few 6-line friends who are hope motivation, and you do all really share this. You know, when you're aligned, there is just simply this way of understanding the world that I find naturally empowering, because it's not your responsibility, and you don't have to, the grace it takes to recognize the vulnerability in the parent is going to really influence how you would connect with that parent when you're able to assess where they're at. And it sounds like you maybe didn't have that before, but you have this undertone in your consciousness of judgment. You have a judgment sense that influences your hope motivation. So there is this aspect of your consciousness, the way it learns, the way it becomes more aware, that is always assessing, is this a yes or a no? Do I stand for this or do I not? And it's important for you to do that. It's important for you to have that judgment within you. Because if you don't trust that, all of a sudden you start to have things come into your life that aren't okay for you. Making the judgment call is very important for you. And now, interesting, what I'm hearing is you're thinking, I maybe judge us maybe a little bit too hard. And so now this is a very evolved sense of the mind, a very evolved sense within the consciousness. And now your judgment has circled back again. And you're going, perhaps I was too much. Perhaps I was too hard. What would you want? Like, what would you say to parents now? Now with what you know, there's a parent who has a newborn, they're struggling. Let's just use the language of human design because we meet there. This is a parent learning about their own energy system. And I work with a lot of parents who also want to know about the kids because they want to know, I want to raise this child in a way that's healthy for them. I don't want to put my shit on them. And I know that I have a cold thirst eater and sometimes the yogurt is too warm for the kid and I don't have to scold or get mad at the kid. I can be like, wow, my kid is so brilliant. He knows what is good for him to intake. You can see how that would easily get lost. You're tired, just eat your yogurt. I got the yogurt. Just, oh my God. But actually, you're deeply respecting the child, in my perspective, because you're empowered with information that you maybe wouldn't have been empowered with. So let's entertain now. There's the parent. They're learning about themselves. They're learning about their child. What do you say to them? How do you extend this grace to them in that they're doing a good job? The child is lucky to have them. But how would you guide them now?
Well, what are they struggling with?
So that's what you would look for, Power View. Where's the struggle? Where's the breakdown? So where has been your greatest struggles?
I mean, in the newborn phase, for me, it's lack of sleep. Like I would have 6 kids if I was guaranteed sleep for the next 4 from the start. So for me, it's like, I don't have my sleep, then I have nothing. And
you're not rested. You haven't recharged your energy.
Yeah.
So the most important thing for the parent when the child is in newborn state, the most important thing for the child is sleep. So the most important thing for the parent is sleep as well.
For sure.
So at this time of this huge moment of entering reality, sleep is the number one priority, I'm hearing.
For me, and I think I've talked to a lot of moms who are like, yeah, I've just learned how to function off of 3-4 hours and that's just my new normal and that's what I do. And I'm like, that
felt like dying
human.
for me. Yeah.
So I think that in order to know how to properly guide a parent or talk to a parent, I have to know what's the thing that they're struggling most with in this transition, in the postpartum period, or just in the post-baby period, if you're a father, But
people are going to comment below then about I want the comments below to come to say what the stages are. But actually, Al, maybe you're introducing a nice little path for us. Let's go with the newborn stage.
Sure.
What do we need to know? And then we'll move on to some other stages. What do we need to know about the newborn stage in order? And we're talking about the parent now. We know how important it is to raise these children and give them the things that they need and raise them with awareness. But we cannot do that if we are not self-aware. We're just going to unconsciously, and we do anyway, put stuff on them. So what does the parent need to know in that newborn phase? What do they need to know about themselves, the family unit, and the child?
I think you need to know how you need to be taken care of, because so much of the postpartum period is needing people to take care of you, and you're taking care of this thing when you need to be the one who's taking care of. And I didn't know that until the second baby. So the first time it was like, I don't know what to ask for. I don't know how to ask for help. I don't know how to ask for what I need. This is brand new. And I think part of what you need to know is like, this is brand new. You've never done this before. You're going to figure it out through the experience.
Cantone, I have chills all of a sudden. That sounded like the start of a book. Just want to put that out there.
I don't even know what I said.
Start of a book.
Okay, well, we'll have to listen to that back.
Yeah, well, it was the way you introduced the entire concept. And I was like, I'm just going to jump in, say what happened there, just so there's an opportunity that can open should she ever want it.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, very powerful.
Yeah, you just don't know.
They gentleness.
It's what you need to know is there's a lot that you don't know, and this is all new, and you're not going to have it right away. You might not have it right ever, and that's okay. This period is so hard for me, the first 6 months, both times, was the hardest period of my parenting experience so far. I don't resonate.
I would echo that. Me too. That was my most
Yeah.
challenging. Mm-hmm.
I just don't resonate with parents yet who say, oh, just wait until they get older. Oh, just wait until they're 2.
Yep.
Oh, just wait until they start going to school. I'm like, I don't experience any of that. What's true for me and what's really hard for me is I've just been like ripped open and I'm healing. And now I have to take care of this thing that doesn't
And I'm
know
maybe
that I'm
breastfeeding. The
healing.
child's
I'm
feeding off
breastfeeding.
me. Yeah.
There's so much
My
I'm
energy
being
must be cared
depleted.
for.
Yeah,
Totally.
I'm being depleted. So even if you don't get it really like it all the pieces together, know how to ask for what you need. And I think that's what's just really important in any relationship, right? Like you should be able to ask your partner for what you need and ask your partner for what you want, and you should feel safe. In my opinion, you should feel safe to be able to verbalize your wants and needs to whoever is taking care of you through this phase, whether it's your partner, whether
Yeah.
it's
What
your
do we do?
mom, your
What do we do
mother-in-law.
when we're alone? What do we do when the relationship broke down, or I'm doing this, I'm going to be parenting this child on my own? What do you think would be the most supportive thing if they do not have that partner? Who should I seek? Who should I lean on? Because it's an impossible task alone, and yet many women do it. Some men do it. What would be the best way to support themselves through that?
I You have to get help. Like that's my personal opinion is you have to
You
find
can't do it
help
alone.
in some way. It's not biologically like we're not supposed to do that alone. And
No.
obviously some people are in situations where they have to. Something tragic happens or the
We
relationship
must
falls
lean on
apart.
community then.
But you need to
Mhm.
find people. You have to go out of your comfort zone to ask for help and to ask for what you need, even if you don't get
You
everything that you're
don't have
hoping
to do
for.
it on your own.
Yeah,
Even if you think you do, even if the situation forces you to think that that's all that's available, it's not.
it's
What's
not.
needed is for you to accept and admit, I need help in this. And that ultimately will be what's best for baby. Because
That's what I was going to say too. Yeah.
the parent needs to be in good spirits. When we have these children who are incredibly evolved, have these incredibly evolved tones like feeling, like touch somewhere in their body's design, we are learning that they're eating the energy and atmosphere around the caregivers. They're eating and absorbing and digesting the energy in the home. If mom is in a very bad place, so is baby. And that's really devastating. That's why we don't want to pile on moms. But the reality of the situation is if you're hurting, so is baby at this time because you're
Yeah.
so connected. And that's a way to actually get to mom to go, okay, I got to ask for help. Whether it's who, and that can be anywhere, whether it's my friend circle, whether it's my family, whether it is seeking something in the community, it's a fallacy that we think we have to do it on our own. This is a symptom of the isolation within our larger culture that we're in.
Yeah,
And we've been
definitely.
hearing some of the most ancient wisdom we hear from parents is it takes a village.
Yeah.
And now it may be because we're in these times of separation and isolation, we have to be a little bit more conscious and intentional about seeking that out because the world has changed, because we live these more isolated lives. But what I'm hearing from you is what's best for baby is if mom is deeply supported. Or if mom is not
Absolutely.
there, if primary caregiver is deeply supported by the community, that's what's best for baby. Is that fair?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you just have to you have to find help. It doesn't mean you have to pay for help. If you can, that certainly helps,
A
right?
privilege that you should, that if you can afford,
Sure.
go for it. Yep.
But for me, the thing that was most challenging was the first 10 months of Hartley's life. This is baby 1. I had a traumatic birth, so I
Right.
was
That's a whole other thing. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I was really attached to the idea of being around him all the time, and that's what feels natural as a mother in the beginning, especially when you're breastfeeding, and I just wanted to be there for everything. I wanted to have eyes on everything. Like I didn't want there to be a moment where I
Yeah.
wasn't around him. But then I craved having a break, but I didn't want to take
That
the break.
war, hey? Yeah. But
Mhm.
I love this person so much and I'm so exhausted from them. Like, I
I
want to be there
struggle with
every
that.
waking moment, but oh my God, I just need someone to step in for that war. Yeah.
I struggle with that hard. I mean, I
I did
struggle
too.
with that today hard of, gosh, I just don't want to miss a single breath. And please, someone else take care of my kids so I can just have a moment to myself. And then also feeling very bitter and resentful because I feel like even the moment that I have to myself doesn't feel like I truly get to have a break. I never feel like I actually get to have a break because they just live in my cells now. And I'm always
Of course.
thinking about them. Right. So it's part of
So,
the
Al,
process.
you didn't have that awareness in the first life phase when you had all these masters and this education. You didn't necessarily have the embodied knowing of that deep struggle.
Of the
And I
feeling.
know of the feeling. Yeah. I
Mhm.
know as a parent, um, to know the person on the other side supporting me has that aware embodiment, I would choose them over someone who didn't have it
Yeah.
because it's almost like they see me in a
Yeah.
way instead of just trying to fix me, because so much or and ultimately we want to do what's best for the child, but we're learning that comes through what we do for the parent. And if there isn't an acknowledgement or something like somebody who doesn't have that experience can acknowledge it, but it just for me feels different when the person on the other side knows the experience intimately. That's why I said to you earlier, I have mad respect for the move you made, because I think you're in a even deeper study. I think that is your world. Like, you're a shores person. I think that is your world. It is child development, but it is also the embodiment of being a parent and knowing what parents need. It's all so connected. So
Mm.
when we get back to this newborn experience, we know both mom and baby need rest. A lot of
Yeah.
rest. Of course, you've just gone through one of the biggest traumas the body can go through. You split in two and you have something now outside yourself. There's going to be And we can have really traumatic birth experiences, which you did have a traumatic birth experience. I did as well. I almost died during labor. And then I've got to come back into my body and I'm so responsible for someone. And like, I'm not sure if I'm coming or going and your hormones are changing. I don't know what I'm saying. I don't know what I'm doing in that phase. I'm exhausted. Oh, now this person needs me and I'm not my best self because I'm exhausted. That's torture. That's torture for a human being. So baby needs adequate rest. Mom needs adequate rest. Support is very much needed. It cannot fall on one person. Support needs to be achieved wherever is necessary. What else do we need to know about the newborn experience if we're trying to be as respectful, loving, gracious, compassionate to baby and parents in that moment? You've become a creator. You've created life now. In my
Mm.
family's culture, this is synonymous with God.
I think one of the things that can be really hard just because we've sort of been programmed by our society to keep it going and be fast, right? And just move along. And like, you've got the birth and that was the event. And now you have the baby and now that's a whole other thing. And my experience has been that everything has taken so much more time to process than the sort of allotted time that I'm being given by whoever to do the processing and do the healing and doing all of that. And I think because we're programmed, then the people around us can forget that we're still going through something months later when it's like, but the baby's 3 months old now. That was forever ago. And it's like, we're still in the thick of it. We're still here. And what's interesting is, like, I think this keeps happening as you have multiples, is you have one, right? And you're like, I don't know what's going on at all. And I don't know until I look back. And sometimes I don't even know. Like, now I can see my first year with Hartley so much more clearly now that I've done a whole year with another one. And then if I had another one, I'm sure I'd be like, oh my gosh, what were we doing then? And what were we doing then? And then also there's an element to like when you have more, then you're also on the schedule of the other ones. So it almost, you have to find that balance of it being like you're still parenting another child when you're learning how to have this other one. And and not like this is about the
And they're
experience
different.
with
They're
two,
not the
but they're
same.
different. Yeah. And like with Hartley, I was so like, I'm going to let him nap for as long as he naps, and I'm going to let him sleep for as long as he sleeps, and he's up at 3 a.m. And if he wants to play for 4 hours, that's just what he's going to do. And we're going to follow his lead, and we're going to like totally and completely let him run the show in that way. And then Sienna was born, and I was like, I am sleeping at this time. I am waking her up for this feeding. Like I wasn't super diligent about it, but I was more scheduled with her, and she's 100% my better sleeper and has a different emotional
Moment there, though.
experience than
A
Hartley
moment
has.
there. Sienna was cool. I was able to come when you were pregnant with her, and she was born as a ego manifester. So I was like, that's fun. We're a rare breed. It's interesting to me that almost like a heart ego energy came into you when she was born. No, what's worth it for me? What, it's almost like you took your power back when that energy came. Does Hartley have a defined heart?
No, he has a completely open heart, and he's emotional authority.
He has a totally open ego.
Yeah.
And my son can be very willful. We're going to let him run the show. There's a deeper teaching in there to me as a listener. And then when Sienna came, the second baby came, who has this heart definition, it is her authority. Her projector mom then went, almost took her power back. So you're going to be impacted by these children differently. Hartley being emotional authority would have impacted your emotions very intensely.
Yeah.
And Sienna being ego authority would impact your heart very intensely.
Yeah.
Which is just
100%.
Which is just interesting.
Well, is her heart defined unconsciously? Do you have their charts pulled up right now?
Of course I have their charts.
I just want to know if her heart was defined in my body.
Yes, it is. She has the 51 to 25 totally unconscious, but there's a conscious overlay on the 25.
Okay, because if
So
it was
she's able to
defined
build
on
awareness
her design date when it was in my body before she was born, then that means that I was being conditioned by her.
There's another girl, I love when you go off about the design of pregnancy. I'm not sure if we're going to get into that today, but the knowledge that you have on the way the child is in utero, what that whole experience was, because you were able to go through your pregnancies with that knowledge. I think that's just absolutely incredible. But I wanted to ask something specific because you had variable awareness when both the kids were born. And to begin with Hartley, he's a cold thirst kid like you. And, we hear a lot of stories about breastfeeding can be difficult because we're giving them something warm. And I know I've heard Ra talk about this. He's like, think about these cold thirst babies. The second they come out, we're breastfeeding them. And we know that they're cold. One of the things I noticed when I was there was he had his own little, I want to say he had his own like Stanley or something. And this kid crushed water like nobody's, but he was always, and it was cold. What were you able to notice? Well, first of all, what did you notice anything about that breastfeeding experience? And were you able to see his touch cognition, his cold thirst determination when he was an infant, when he's a newborn?
Yeah, 100%.
You could recognize it already.
Well, one, he was just very thirsty and very demanding of my breast, and then would get very finicky about like how it was happening, and
he's touched too.
Bottles really well that I would warm but like keep at room temperature before I gave them to him. Like I was really cognizant of not giving him a piping hot bottle. And I can't say that everyone who would give him a bottle, because I let other people do that sometimes, followed that same thing. But I was like, you know what? If it's like 80% of the time how I think it should be happening, I'm okay with that.
Control
Like
what
I
you can
just, and I also
control.
have like no evidence that this is actually going to be making a difference. So
Mhm.
I also take a lot of stuff like this kind of stuff with a grain of salt too, where I'm like, I'm aware of it, but I'm not going to live
Yes.
by it
Mhm.
until I see it,
Mhm.
until he's showing me it. So a lot of the stuff with his cold thirst, I sort of was just observing him and letting him show me. And I noticed it a lot when I introduced water and when he wanted ice water and when
He
he
also loves smoothies. Like everything he was
loved
having.
smoothies.
Mhm.
Yeah, he loves smoothies. He still drinks smoothies. He'd ask for a smoothie every single morning. We go through those like smoothie pouches like crazy. The amount of money that someone, I mean, it's insane. The amount of money that we spend on smoothie pouches, he will just like crush four and be like, I want more. I'm like, that was $15 like in 30 seconds. And um I mean, all kids like fruit, I think, but like fresh berries, cold berries, things out of the fridge. He
Yeah.
loves a little plate out of the fridge. Like after his nap, I'll make him berries and some cheese and crackers, like things that are not
It's a
cooked.
mix. Mhm.
Or he'll
Mhm.
ask for like cold mac and cheese, cold oatmeal, he'll ask
Interesting.
for cold meatballs. He likes leftovers. And I'm like that too.
And
Like I'll just eat cold
you allow
leftovers out
that.
of
You
the fridge.
support that.
Oh, yeah, like, I don't need to heat it up, and sometimes I do. Sometimes he'll ask for it, but if it's hot, it needs to be room temperature, so he doesn't eat anything hot, even, like, tea.
Hmm.
We all had tea last night, and he's like, "Let's drink tea on the couch," and I'm like, "Okay, we'll drink tea on the couch." So we have tea. I'm fine with hot tea. I don't mind that. Chris is having his hot tea, and Hartley gets his tea, and he's like, "It's too hot. Put it in the freezer." And so we had to put his tea in the freezer until it was at room temperature, and we just, like,
Hmm.
we're not
Oh,
gonna
that's how. Yeah.
argue with him. It's just how it
But
is. It's
some
just how he
parents would. That's what
be
the
like,
way
"Oh, just
we
eat it,"
have
or "You have
tea.
to eat it while it's hot," and, like, I
Right.
just
Things we say. Mhm.
that's just not my reality of, like, trying to argue silly things like that with him. I'm just not that type of person, and also the awareness helps me not have any, like, pushback with stuff like that, but I've
Totally. Al,
definitely
that's the whole
noticed it.
difference, right? That's
Yeah.
the whole thing. It's like, oh, I've been turned on to this, so I'm just going to check myself rather
Right,
than
right.
parrot the
Mhm.
larger collective conditioning, all the information out there that's overwhelming parents, what actually applies to my situation. That's really
Yeah,
what it gave me, and
yeah.
I had a feeling cognition kid, so this child was very emotional in a way, would plug in and really feel things and it would overtake him. And he's a little
Mm,
boy. And there's lots of
mm.
conditioning that goes on to little boys about how they should be with their emotions.
Mm.
And it was like, well, what do I need to know?
Yeah.
And I have an atmosphere eater. So the space needs to be set when he's
Yeah.
eating, otherwise he'll transfer to appetite and he'll just pick one thing off his plate. And I'm kind of always observing that, which leads
Mhm.
me into Sienna because she's an appetite eater. She's
Yeah.
touch cognition, just like her brother. You've got these two kids they're grasping and holding things in life. And, these are touchy feely kids. They want to be close to the parent sometimes because they physically want to be held. And so there's a dynamic to be aware of there.
Mhm.
But she's little. She's still in that newborn infant age. How do you see appetite show up in her? Do you see it show up in her?
Right now, the only thing I do with her is, um, I just put stuff on her tray and let her decide. Like,
One
that's
thing
how
at a
I
time, too. Mhm.
yeah, and it's like and
And she's a
she's
manifester.
alternating, so,
Mhm.
like, she doesn't Hartley used to, like, mash everything together, and he would, like, want it to all be together.
Thirst, mixing it.
And
Mhm.
yeah, and that's kinda how I am too, like, I want the
Mhm.
sauce on top of the thing, and she just, like, if we're having yogurt, like, she just wants to eat her yogurt. And then maybe she'll grab a
Okay.
blueberry, but she doesn't, like, put her blueberries into her yogurt, you know? And I think I'll notice more again as she's 14 months,
Develops.
so
Mhm.
as she develops a little bit more, as she can start to verbalize and talk, and she'll ask for things, but where I really notice it is when, her choices for playing,
Okay.
like,
That's how
she
it could come through.
likes one book, and she likes to do she likes one toy, one book, like, she just likes to pick one thing. She, like,
One
gets
thing at a time
obsessed
is the
over
bigger teaching,
one
right?
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's not like she can't play with multiple things. I'm not gonna, like, put one toy in the playroom and be like,
But
"This is
she
all you
can
get today."
select, yeah. The this toy.
She just gets to select it. And again, I think that's what I go back to with the parenting is like, of course, there's something to say about setting up our environment in such a way, but it's not necessarily about setting it up in such a way for that specific thing. It's more like let the environment be what it is, or set up the environment and then let the child do what they want in that environment and watch what they do. So she always picks the same book. And I'm like, cool. She loves this like
Her
Miss
favorite.
Rachel, 100 words.
Miss
book.
Rachel.
Loves
Miss
Miss
Rachel.
She's obsessed with Miss Rachel. She like does these books and this Miss Rachel doll that she's obsessed with, like more than we even watch it. I don't feel like we even watch it that often, but she's just like obsessed with Miss Rachel.
She's markets.
She likes the Miss Rachel book, the Miss Rachel Tony, and the Miss Rachel doll, and that's like her thing. That's what she goes in between.
One thing at a time. Miss Rachel everywhere.
Like Miss Rachel's
I get
my
to
girl.
select my favorite, and
I
even
love it.
though. Even you're setting things out on her tray. She's not mixing the blueberries in the yogurt. She's eating the yogurt. Then she might have a blueberry. It's one thing at a time. But you've even empowered her more to be able to select. Like that's another feature of her design, to select the things that has the right feeling for her. And if Miss Rachel has the right feeling, it makes sense to me that she would have the favorite book. And I'm going to keep reading this book until I'm done with it. And you can have the other books out and she may initiate and select when she's ready. But to be like, no, you're reading this book now. It's like, well, where's my favorite? And it's good for her to have her favorite. Some kids would be
not going to be like, oh no, do this thing instead. Like, I just don't, that's just not my job to try to manipulate that thing because it just doesn't matter. It's like Chris and I, when we talk, about the things that we struggle with the kids, and especially with Hartley right now, just being very demanding of things being a certain way. It's like we just have to let him assert control in the areas where it's safe to assert control, because there's so many things that a toddler can't.
Right, that open heart is fascinating.
Control over. And so it's like that's kind of the thing that we keep going back to is it's not worth a battle. It's not worth an argument. Like it just, and I'm so grateful that we're both on the same page in that way, where we're like, okay, buddy, yep, it just doesn't matter that much to us for it to be a certain way. And I think that's just so important for little kids to like, we can get so caught up in things appearing and looking and being perceived by other people a certain way. And for me,
it's about us, right? It's all about us
totally
worrying about how we're
us.
perceived. Yeah,
absolutely. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm going to let him do that thing. And another parent can think that I'm insane for like letting him climb the big slide at the park when he's 11 months old. But like, that's just what he does.
Touch.
And if he falls, I'm going to catch him, like there's certain things that.
Oh, you fell down. Never forget that. Yeah.
That's
and
so funny.
You got right back up. And he's like,
oh, really?
Yeah. I did, Mom. Yeah.
I do try to narrate everything that they're doing.
You're self-projected.
Without being annoying or overbearing. But especially if something is frustrated, and now they're frustrating, and now they're starting to fight. So that's also been an interesting.
That's going to be interesting. But they're
really
moving into toddlerhood, and so there's the needs change and everything. But also something that's introduced then is like childcare, preschool, the school system. And you come from the school system. You've been plugged into the school system. Now we could say you're not. I also want to acknowledge you're in America, and there is a lot of scary, violent energy within the school system. In other parts of the world, we hear about school shootings. In my country, we don't have the same legislation around guns. So in my world, it's quite foreign to even imagine that we could be in this situation. So I just want to acknowledge I don't share the potential fears that parents could have with the school system, but you were in the school system. So what did you learn when you were in it about being a worker, but also for the kids? And what are you thinking of doing now that you're a parent? Okay, what do we need to know about the school system? You worked in it. What do we need to know about it?
It's just political.
Okay.
It's just a political money-making industry like all of our other, major industries here.
Well, it was created to introduce kids into the workforce. It was to train them so that they could easily integrate into the workforce. The reason we wanted people to have kids was to keep the workforce going, was so the world would keep going. And there seems to be larger shifting around our greater purpose here.
Yeah, unfortunately, I just think that the public school system and the curriculum has been developed and manipulated by, like, honestly, like, kind of more evil forces.
Okay, okay.
And I think that it's designed, I don't think that was the original intention, but I think that has been what has now, what it has turned into.
You were a teacher. How are teachers impacted by that?
Because you get certain incentives if you push a certain thing.
Oh, it's like
And that
doctors.
could be
Okay.
different in different systems. It's the same thing with doctors, right? Like you
Mhm.
get incentivized for billing your patients. So in the same way that a
Or certain
teacher
medicine or
will get an accolade if they have certain test scores. And I just think
Hmm.
that the public school system as a whole, like I don't have to get into the nitty-gritty politics of it. You could certainly look that up yourself, but I think that it's designed to take away our authority. I think it's
Okay.
designed to turn us into kind of like blind sheep and followers. And I just don't like that. And that's just not who I am and who I've been as a person. Like I've never just trusted the person who's higher up telling me something. I'm really skeptical of like authoritative voices that are really loud, which obviously makes me super skeptical of anything political, anything government oriented. And the school system is a government system, you know? So, yeah, I just am not, public school's not my thing. I also don't like the public schools where I live. And that's always something that I knew that I wasn't going to
Mm.
have my kids go through when I was a teacher in a public school because I didn't like the way that I was treated. I didn't like the way that I was told I had to treat the children. I didn't like the way that I was told I had to prioritize certain children and
Mm.
let other children sort of fall through the cracks. That was something that really rubbed me the wrong way, that
Of
got me
course.
interested in talking about child development and human design online in the first place, because I was like, it's the kids who fall through the cracks who are the ones who struggle the most, you know? And um so I just
Yeah.
don't vibe with the school system, and
So
I
wait,
just
girl, what
believe.
I heard
Yeah.
is while you were there working and you were an educator in this, the thought that you had was, when I have kids, my kids will not go here. That's
Yeah.
pretty. So there's someone on the inside seeing what it is and then exiting and going, no, my family will not go there. You also
Yeah.
did some private schools. So is it more of like an alternative style, like more of a Waldorf, Montessori? Did you have, is that what when you mean when you did other
I
teaching?
was in a Montessori school,
Okay. Yeah.
and
Totally different approach.
very different approach. Again, though, it's just unfortunately like every school needs to make money to run. So unless
Yeah, girl,
there's
use that
definitely some
judgment sense.
schools
Go off.
There's
What did you
definitely some
see?
schools that are like nonprofits that haven't had obviously nonprofits don't need to make money, right? Like it's not like they're just coming out of thin air. Like you still have to
You
pay your
still have to,
teachers, you still have to,
yeah. Hmm.
yeah. There's something to say also about like the quality of
Uh,
life of the teacher in the nonprofit, which I've worked at, because you get paid absolutely nothing. So you're like barely living and barely surviving. So it's not like one is necessarily that much better than the other, but I've been in a lot of different school environments, and it's just like the thing that I can sum up from all of it from a teacher's standpoint is that we're underpaid and we have to like
This blows my
what's the
mind that we would do this to the people responsible for educating our
yeah,
babies. You
we're
know,
expected to over deliver, but we're so underpaid.
underpay. I
And
totally
it's
agree.
just like no one who's operating in that environment can do their job to the best of their ability. Um, and I also just think that the curriculum is like so intense for a young child and doesn't teach the skills that we actually need to be taught at that age, and doesn't focus on the child's actual interests and strengths, but rather takes the child and sort of grooms them into an idea of, here are the options that you have, and here are the things that you must know in order to be this fully functioning adult. But then there's so many of us who get into our 20s. And I'm like, I was never told how to do any of this stuff. And like, my parents didn't know that I wasn't getting an education on those things, the practical living skills. Like when teaching in specifically special education schools in some years, and I'm like, all of these life skills that these kids are being taught are the life skills that they should be teaching all of us, not just the children who are lowly functioning autistic children. It should be everyone getting these life skills, everyone learning how to live on their own, everyone learning how to do chores and not prioritizing. Of course, you have to have the basic skills like, math, reading, whatever, writing.
Maybe we need those.
Maybe.
Like,
I don't know. Do we
things are
even need to
changing
write
now.
anymore?
I know, right? Like, kids can't read cursive writing? Like,
yeah, that's kind of crazy.
It's like,
I loved doing
can't
cursive.
read it. Me too. I
that
loved
was my
it. Me too. I loved it.
favorite, like the little worksheets that you would get and you'd have to make the little loop-de-loop. I loved it.
What I'm hearing from you is there's a lack of trust in the public school system. That's coming from somebody who lives in America. But I would echo, I have a child in the public school system, and we were quite selective about his school. And I am really a champion of his school. And also, there are flaws. And then I'm hearing when we have some of these alternative schools, there are flaws. Mm-hmm. And so, as a parent, it's like, well, what's my next option? To homeschool? And, I homeschooled my son for 1 year, especially during COVID. He was entering school at kindergarten when COVID was happening. And I said, absolutely not. So I guess I'm going to homeschool. I taught adults. I'm not a child educator. But I was like, but I have this skill. I'm sure I can apply it here. And I was still working. It was incredibly challenging. And I knew it was not going to be realistic for me to continue on that because I wasn't going to be able to keep up with what his needs are. But I felt that I could do it for then. And I'm happy that I had that experience with him. But there's obviously flaws in that as well. So it sounds like it's all broken. Damned if we do, damned if we don't. So I want to ask you, like, let's entertain. We were designing a new system. And I heard that you would have a lot of it about life skills. That was cool. I loved that. But I'm curious, how would you design it?
Oh, gosh.
And there's no right or wrong answer here. Like, let's just entertain we were designing a new school system because the world has shifted. We don't need to prepare them for the workforce now, unless that's what we want to do. But how would you design it?
Well, it's interesting because Chris and I are both entrepreneurs and we're both entrepreneur minded, right? Mm-hmm. So he's like, Chris is always like, they're not going to go to college. Like, why would we need to send them to college?
Will we even have colleges at that point? Look at how what's happening.
Like, they could just step into the business and help us out, and we could teach them how to.
They might teach themselves something through
make
YouTube,
money.
For goodness sakes.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So it's like, look, I don't have it all figured out by any means. This is all like a development that's especially been coming up strongly in me lately. But I think number one priority and what I value most as in how I go about being a parent or how I go about being an educator is like child-led education. I don't think it should necessarily be a free-for-all in like, you know what? He doesn't like math. He doesn't like reading. So we're just not going to do that yet. Like, I think that's also where even like gentle parenting and all of these other things that are like the opposite side of the spectrum can be also not the best thing because it's not just about it being one way.
I just want to say how much I agree with you, but like what a natural part of the way we learn is like it's too strict over here, so let's go completely the opposite in this kind of peaceful parenting movement.
We're going to do nothing.
And also we had to do that to see what the spectrum actually is, and I wonder if there's perhaps a middle way or perhaps a different way. And you're saying there is child-led education. What does that look like? They're not running the show, but they are.
They're not running the show. I think it's important for children to have authority figures and discipline.
I'm sorry. I want to jump in again. There's huge stats coming out now about how I'm learning so much about how men are really struggling and men are very lost. And yes, while our women are starting to have different types of traction, men are the most homeless people. They're the ones doing the most violent crimes. They're, they're very, very unwell. And part of the analysis is they're deeply disconnected from children and their family. And they're trying, there's a huge surge, and we want more male teachers. This is a predominantly female dominated place. And we want more male teachers because we also want children to be exposed to that healthy, divine, masculine energy. And so there's a call right now for masculine male educators. Interesting. Because it's like,
well, I think
all my teachers were women.
It's like there's a call for discipline and structure, and discipline is not blah, 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 don't do this, and pointing finger at a child and talking down to them. But discipline is having structure, having a container.
Discipline is not a dirty word. It's not a bad word. And you put it in the context of like, I must be disciplined with myself in order to be deeply respectful of myself. That is perhaps a life skill, perhaps it's a life skill to learn self-discipline, to apply yourself. It's not that we need some commander coming in and what would the healthy expression be of discipline? So sorry to jump in there on that, but I still want to say child-led education, where the authority figure, there's a shift around the authority. To use human design language, you're putting the authority back in the child, right? And you're teaching them how to connect with your authority.
You're putting the authority back in the child within a container, within a disciplined container. And what I mean by that is like a structure and a schedule. Yeah. So there is a schedule that we follow. Even you look at a child wants that structure. A child wants predictability. When we go too far on the other end of the spectrum and we give them absolutely nothing,
disorienting.
Maybe it works for some kids, and I'm sure there are parents who are like, that whole model really works well for me, and I'm not going to be like, it will never work. But it's more so, I think you can
maybe
find
they have a manifestor
kid.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Maybe I'll say something different 3 years from now. But I think that I think all of us, we need a little bit of structure, a little bit of discipline.
And masculine.
We need the masculine container.
Absolutely agree.
Even Hartley, we're on our way to his little Waldorf school this morning, and he's like, it's going to be circle time. And he has this predictable
It's comforting.
thing. He knows what's going to happen, right? There's this free play, but then there's circle time. It's comforting for him. He knows what's coming next. I think it's important for kids to know what's coming next. And also, I think it's really important to have that structure and discipline so that you can go into adulthood knowing how to structure and discipline your own life. That's something that I really struggle with, is having discipline with myself, having structure for myself.
I wasn't taught that. I missed that life skill. Had to learn it as an adult.
I'm also a very feminine, emotional person, so I need masculine structure to
hold
the
emotion, right? On circle time. The way I had approached homeschooling with my child of a manifesting generator, I was like, how the heck am I going to do this? And we had made all these cards of different, and he got to color them. We made them together of the different kinds of subjects that we could do. And I let him make a lot of them, but then I was able to tuck in math. I was able to tuck in, these other ones.
Yeah.
And each day before school, the night before, to prepare him, I would let him select 3 cards that we're going to focus on that day. And then they would be removed for the week. And he's a caves kid, so he needs a lot of safety and security, but he has a taste tone. So he needs to sample and select things in his environment. And, with an MG, you want to let them respond and initiate to a degree, And this kid loved circle time, always picked circle time. Circle time, circle time, circle time, so much so that he would miss it when it wasn't an option. So, because I would remove the option the next day. So we started to just build in, every day is just going to start with circle time. And it was like the grounded, safe thing where we come together. How are we feeling today? How did we sleep last night? We're doing this today. Like, so we adjusted because of how meaningful the ritual was. And, I think collectively, we are quite hungry for meaningful rituals because we're in this disconnected time. And this is so affirming to me to even hear your toddler going to school, even younger than like kindergarten age, was like, circle time, something to look forward to, something to connect to, something that is I can count on, that is going to be there so I know what to expect. That provides for him, in his case as a caves kid, the foundation for high quality learning, because he's going to feel safe in that environment. And you're now seeing that kind of come through him. Very beautiful.
Yeah. As you were talking, I was kind of like, oh, I can see it.
Inner vision.
I like the idea of letting the child lead the day, but having those things. And the one thing
Yeah.
I was thinking as you were saying is I was like, I've done something similar like that with a student, and they saved all the things that they didn't want to do for the end of the week, and it would make the end of the week really hard.
So hard. Oh, yeah. That would
So then
happen.
I
Mhm.
started
We had
to
a
do
lesson
like,
around that.
you pick two, I pick one, and I would
That's what
always
we
pick the
did.
things that they don't want to pick.
That was me. But then we talked about, if we leave everything on our plate that we don't like till the end, it's like,
Yeah, and the
we
end of the
eat our
week is just
favorite
really
first,
hard.
then
Yeah.
finishing the plate is really hard. Yeah, a
Yeah,
lesson though,
yeah.
and also a lesson that needs to be learned. I don't want to bypass my child from kind of going through that because it is a very valuable lesson.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that you're designing your school system?
Yes.
You're anchoring it around building life skills for the new world, the new paradigm, this new world order that we're in. And you are a proponent and advocate of child-led education with safe
Mhm.
structures and schedules and rituals to anchor them.
Yeah.
Anything else that you think is very important for that?
Well, I think that something else, I mean, I haven't really done any research on a homeschool curriculum and what that
Ooh.
looks like. So I don't know what's out there. And I'm sure that I would look at something and then go, well, maybe I could do it this way, or maybe I could integrate it into this thing. The other thing that concerns me with homeschooling, because I'm not quite there yet, my kids are still little.
You have time.
Hartley's basically just in this like almost like a little Waldorf daycare thing because I noticed that he gets really stir crazy at home, and I wanted to start to get him into the
Well, he's
social
caves,
interaction.
so he's going to transfer to mountains. So a huge part of his experience for his whole life is he's going to get stir crazy and he's going to need to go out, and that's healthy.
Yeah.
He's also a fourth line, I believe, so that network, the
Yeah.
community is a huge proponent to his learning as well. So to go into an environment like that for some kids is extremely, I'd say for all kids, to be mingling, but there is value in going and being with other kids, not just at home too, right?
I think what I would end up doing really is like a hybrid situation, because my main concern with homeschooling is that if they were like truly like schooled at home only and in isolation, that they wouldn't have the meaningful social emotional development that I found to be really important. So now I'm projecting my own experience.
Me too,
onto
though.
them.
School was a social learning.
Like, school
It
was
was
a social learning thing. But I know that they have, like, when homeschool is not just, okay, we sit in at our kitchen table and we do homework. Like, I think we have an idea that that's what it is. But we have a park literally around the corner from us. And like 3 times a week, there's like a homeschool group of parents who all meet up together at the park, and they like one parent will come and they'll organize something and they do all of these little activities together. I think I would have
love
people come
that.
to my home just because I'm designing our home to be like our backyard to be that setting for us.
Are you?
Yes, I
Oh,
am.
interesting.
Yes, I am.
Oh, interesting.
So I think I'd have people come to us. And also, I like the idea of people coming to me and me not getting my kids in the car to go somewhere, because the thing that I find to be the most daunting is getting Hartley ready in the morning to get into the car at a certain time to go to school. Like, I just do not like it. I do not like it. Once we're on the road and we're going and I drop him off, like, he's happy to make his way in. But the transition from getting him out of home into the car is like the hardest thing ever. And so I think the idea, again, selfishly, the idea of me doing that for the next 18 years is like very daunting.
My parents had hell with me trying to get me out of the house in the morning and get me dressed. Like, my memory is
I
like the
remember that
fighting
too.
with my parents. And my mom said I had
Wanting
to
to
completely
sleep
check
and-
out. She's, I had to let your dad do it because you would fight with me so bad that the whole day would start that way, because she was rushing me. Like, she always was rushing
Well,
me.
you kind of have to, though. Like,
She
you
did.
have to like
She
rush
had
your
things,
kid.
but I hated that feeling,
I hate the feeling of rushing my child, and it feels so
Totally.
unnatural when I'm rushing my child. And so I'm like, I don't like this feeling. He doesn't like this feeling. What are we doing, and why are we doing it?
If we were in a totally different paradigm and there were no public school systems and it was something that happened inside the home, what would happen is the parents would need the relief and they would need to socially teach their children, and we simply would gather. Like that is a
Yes.
natural, we would just simply do that. Every Tuesday, we would all be meeting up at the ABC because the point is we're getting the kids, like that would just naturally happen. You're like, I think I would do it this way. It's like, I think you're bang on, because you need the relief. Even my child, like once a week, there's a different teacher that comes in. Like on Wednesdays, he's taught by a different teacher. His teacher gets a break or whatever it is. Like you see some of these things kind of happening in the school system. But something I wanted to ask you, if you were designing this curriculum, the parent does need to be educated as well to a point.
Yeah.
And would you teach the parent about energetics? Would that be a requirement?
Oh,
Would
for
it be
sure.
valuable? You would.
I mean, I just think that you wouldn't be able to do this model unless you had that awareness.
This deep understanding of the child and what the child's learning is. Yeah.
I think that's something that I really struggled with, going back to like the beginning of our conversation with looking back at parents. And, I had parents who were like, oh, I just learned about human design and now I'm trying to figure out how to like do this for my kid. I'm like, you need like time to figure yourself out, because I think the number one thing is, well, how, and you and I have been talking about this privately, is like you can organize your life however you want to organize your life. I've been noticing that's the pattern that's coming up when you and I are talking, is like, how do I want to organize my life? What works for me? How do I want to create this structure? And it's like, yeah, I want things to be child-led, but I'm not going to be able to be a good parent, educator, resource for my children unless I design this life and design this space around what's going to allow me to show up with the capacity each day to be that resource for my children. So that's what I find to be most important, is it's not just like, okay, these are my kids. Now I'm going to take like me completely out of the picture and look at these kids and do exactly what they need to do. No, I'm just going to be better and resentful.
But
I
you're
am in the picture.
So you must also respect yourself and understand your own equipment. And also,
like, do I need a Wednesday off? Do I need to do 2 days a week or 3 days a week? Am I going to send them to a school? I don't know that yet,
I wouldn't want
I need
to
figure out how to do it. Yeah.
Like, what about the things that I'm building for myself or my work in the world? I wouldn't want to be giving that up. Am I doing my child a disservice if I hang on to that? Is it really going to fall on one of the parents? And then what about finances,
Right.
So the whole thing doesn't actually work. It does need a bigger kind of review, but I still think it's important to have the conversation of like, if we were thinking about what was best for the child, what's best for the parent. And if the most important job in the world is being a parent, and the most important job in the world is how we raise these kids in a way that they're empowered and supported and healthy, what do we need to know? And if we know there's a breakdown in the school system, well, then what would be the other options? And I'm not necessarily saying like this is the way, but that's why I wanted to hear from you about this, because you have so much knowledge, education, and experience here, and now real life experience impacting this. I was very selfishly curious about the way you would design it if you were designing it, because it is broken. The world is changing. There is a lack of trust. Children are going to school, and also now it's not safe. They are dying. Something does need to change here. What do we need to know if we're imagining these new possible futures? And I think you have a really specific expertise here. Now, and having said that, you've kind of pulled away from this because this is where you're in your life right now. But are we able to find you? If somebody wanted to find you, or is that available? Like I usually am like, where can we find you? So you're not available.
You have to get my number from someone who I'm trying to figure out where to be and what to do, because I have things that I want to say and I don't know where to put them, because I don't like the spaces that I used to be on to put those things. So I'm trying to figure out
that's fair.
Where do I want to talk about this type of stuff? Do I want to talk about it publicly, or do I want it to just be like these random conversations?
Hi, here you are. Love that you're kind of coming here and saying it here, and I get to know you. And I do want to say, just from our own friendship and dynamic, I have felt resistance because I understand where you're at. I don't want to call you into something that you don't want to be called into, second line. And also, you have such knowledge here. You have such education here. There's so much value you bring here. While I see where you're at, and you need to be where you are, it feels important for me as your friend who cares and adores you and champions you that you know how valuable you are in this space, you know how needed you are. And also, if your main focus was just to be at home with your kids, I have deep respect for that because there is no more important job than that. And if anything, you are an example of the mother, the parent who is that. And there is a big, big teaching in that for all of us to kind of just learn through. So whether you go open your own school with this brand new curriculum, or you start a podcast, or you start a homeschool, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I'm just happy to know you and get to witness you and what you're doing.
One thing I will say is I think that in order for me to fully dive into what I want to dive into with my children, I have to make sure that I have the space to talk about it. So it's kind of like I'm just waiting for
the invitation.
I don't know, the invitation, the timing to feel right. I mean, we're literally moving into a new house soon and settling into that. And I have these visions of myself in this space that I'm designing for me specifically to have those conversations.
What are you doing in that space that you see? Okay.
Just talking. Like I need to be able to pull away to talk, you know, I need to be able to pull away to process it, or else it's going to get too overwhelming just being in the being of it. So I'm aware that I need these two things to happen. And right now I'm just sort of pulled away from all of it, like watching this happen, thinking about that stuff, but not really knowing how to fully dive into all of it.
Don't have your outlet and you're self-projected. And so a huge part of your process is speaking and okay.
And so instead I'm just tired all the time and stuck.
But you said you're having visions and you're seeing something. So you're seeing yourself in your new home and your new place and you are expressing yourself creatively in some way. You're just waiting to get there. And you think it's about this subject matter? Because we'll wait, girl. We'll wait.
I can't imagine it being about anything else. I mean, it's just, this is what
That's
I love.
Where your passion is.
I love being a parent. I love my children. I love thinking about how I'm being a parent. I love watching other people being parents and thinking about how they're parenting and maybe judging those people a little
You're
bit.
made to do that. Nothing wrong with that.
It's like, that's just what I like, looking at the things as a whole and thinking about how and why are we doing these things with our children and what could we be doing that's better. Like it's just what I'm thinking about all the time. It's what's always playing in the background. When Chris and I are having a challenging moment with one of the kids and we're having a conversation and debriefing about it, like I just go off on these rants about all of these things. And he's like, I always forget that you like have all this education, you know, and he started to ask me questions now. And so I don't have any desire to like do the maintenance on an account and grow some sort of following or some community. For me, I would feel really regretful if I were to look back and be like, oh, I didn't document my kind of experience on how this was all going. Like I want to look back and be able to see what was my experience and where was I at this certain point. And that's what's really beautiful about social media, is we can sort of have like or not just social media, but like having anything, any kind of platform of any sort or any kind of living diary, right? It's like, it gets to be your living diary of this is where I was at that moment. And that's what I was experiencing. And I feel like I don't have that right now.
So what's missing based on your own teaching is masculine energy, the structure, the schedule, and the ritual. And once you have that, a byproduct will be this natural documentation of your experience. And maybe that's all we need to know, hope, motivation. Maybe from there, what will happen will just simply reveal itself, because you can feel your knowledge and wisdom. And what's missing is the platform to hold you up, the structure so that you can self-project and be heard.
Thanks for listening to my latest insight. If you want to get in touch with your inner architecture, you can learn how to read the human design variables with me at vanesshenry.com. And if you're just getting started with your human design studies, visit the Jovian Archive. And remember, listen to your body.